Welcome to Curious Joel, a show about curiosity taking us deeper into the topics of people's passion and interesting conversation. I'm your host, Joel Circo. So today we are doing one of those interesting conversations. Now, funny story, I was sitting down with my friend, our guest today, Merwin Barrios, and we were originally going to be talking about music.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We were going to be talking about music. He's a bass player. He's really into like music theory and stuff like that, like beyond just like strumming the bass. So like he really likes music, and so I'm also a very big fan of music. I've mentioned it before, but like I need music to survive daily life. So we were going to be talking about music, and then something happened. He was pulling out a piece of paper, and I happened to see something on it, and it's his ADHD diagnosis, and me, who is undiagnosed but 98% sure that I have it.
After this, probably 99.
But like I'm very certain that I have it. I'm working on getting a diagnosis, but I'm like, okay, this is an actual diagnosis paper. I've never seen an actual diagnosis, and so I asked if I could look it over. And I'm reading through this, and like I start asking him questions about all these things, and we sat here for like 20 minutes just talking about ADHD and things that we relate to each other, and reading his stuff and his comments to like counselor, therapist. Which one is it?
I would use neither.
Okay.
The person, roughly, I'd say therapist, but they're a student. So they have their own supervisor who's an actual clinically trained therapist.
But like, what he was saying to his person that with supervisory person.
Let's go with therapist. Because that's what they were working towards too.
Okay,
yeah.
So they're therapists in training.
There you go.
Like the different quotes that stuck out to me that I was like, huh, I get that. And so we just started talking about it. We got very off track, which again is a very ADHD thing to do. Oops, I just spent 25 minutes talking about a thing that I wasn't even supposed to be talking about. So we stopped like 5 minutes ago, and we're like, well, maybe we have a new topic for tonight. And totally switch gears. And I've been laughing because it's just fits.
Yeah.
It's very fitting of why we changed is because we needed to. But yeah, so Merwin, do you want to kind of break down what ADHD is for those that might not know what the acronym is, and then kind of like what typical symptoms are?
Yeah. So ADHD, what it stands for is Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder, and really symptoms vary depending on the person. But like the name suggests, there's difficulty with attention. There's hyperactiveness that, depending on the person, they experience it in different ways. So at least for myself, I'm always either moving my hands or my legs are shaking whenever I'm sitting down. For other people, not just fidgeting, but could also just be ending up losing track of the conversation that they're in, daydreaming, or as the name suggests, just losing attention and focusing on different matters.
Yeah. But unlike the name suggests, it also can represent itself in hyper-focusing. So you see this stereotype in like mad scientists or like the crazy doctors that are like, I need to get my invention done. Oh, is it Thursday already? I thought it was Sunday. Like, just like, you haven't eaten in 3 days? It's like, yeah, I've been working. I didn't even realize days have passed.
I will say, the first time that happened to me, I was quite proud of myself. Because it meant I could actually focus for once.
Well, yeah, and so that's something that, for me, kind of threw me off the scent for a long time, is like, I can, when I want to.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, one of the one of the biggest times, the ones that like I really lost track of time, was actually when I watched Stranger Things season 1. This was before like this was like 2 days after it came out or something like that. Like I just saw it. It looked interesting. I watched the first episode, and then all of a sudden there were no more episodes. Now, for those of you who don't know, Stranger Things has 8 episodes in a season, and each episode is an hour long. I sat nearly perfectly still for 8 straight hours and watched a whole show, at least the whole season of a show, which was the whole show at the time, in a single sitting. Which, like, you get me sitting still for 2 hours and I'm doing something in my imagination or finding some way to, like, do something. Like, my mom would always say, me and my older brother James, like, we could entertain ourselves. We would not be bored in a padded room with nothing in it. We'd find something to entertain ourselves with.
Yeah.
And, like, that's true. Like, normally I always have something to do. As a kid, I'd always have, like, Lego minifigures in my pocket or Hot Wheels or something. Like, my pockets were packed because I needed something to do. So I'd find ways to entertain myself. But sitting still and just staring at something for whatever period of time is, like, crazy. So when I watched the entirety of Stranger Things in a single sitting, I was just like I finished, I realized there's no more episodes. Well, I realized there's no more episodes. Then I realized, wow. Then I realized I should probably use the bathroom and get some water because I haven't had any of that. I literally did not move for 8 hours.
Now, see, that's interesting because when I watch Stranger Things, I didn't make it past the first season. Or not even, I shouldn't say season, it's the first episode. I got 20 minutes in and I got distracted. I got sidetracked. I couldn't keep focused.
So here's the thing. Is for me, Stranger Things did 2 things right for me. One is they started with D&D, which I was already a fan of. Just in general, I like imagination and all that stuff. So like D&D was really cool. And they also were able to walk that like uncanny sensation, which like horror is boring for me. Horror is predictable. Horror and thriller, slasher, all those things. Like once you get to like the quote unquote scary stuff, for me, I'm just sitting there like I've fallen asleep during like I think it was Insidious 2 or something. And one of my friends maybe was like, "It's a really scary movie," and like I'm just like, "Huh? Oh yeah, the ghost did the thing that I knew it was gonna do since 2 minutes in. Cool, great. Oh, you guys jumped. Oh wait, that was a surprise. Oh, okay." But like Stranger Things, like it kept me guessing and kept me like gripping my seat on the edge of my seat the entire time, going like, "Oh, okay, cool. Wait, but that doesn't answer everything. Wait, what's next?" And like so, everything was just like engaging. After they got to past the D&D, and then the kid disappeared. You're like, wait, what took him? Wait, where did it come from? Wait,
I see.
Wait. There's so many questions, and they did a good job of answering enough questions and giving you a few extra questions. Because some shows, they give you like 30, like they answer one question and they give you like 30 more questions. I'm like, okay, they're never going to answer all those. It's a waste of time. Yeah. Anyway, so like it engaged me, and that's what let me focus for 8 hours straight. You lost interest really quick, and you wouldn't have been able to do anything else.
No.
And I think maybe there's a small chance, no pressure to me, but there's a small chance now if I were to give you a few like tantalizing hints about the future episodes or something, you might be able to.
Perhaps.
But again, not likely.
Right.
And that's happened with me with books. I'll put a book down at the wrong time and I'm done.
Yeah.
Like I cannot physically pick that book up again until my brain's like, wait a second, there was that one thing you want to know the answer to. So the hyper focusing is something that a lot of people don't really talk about, because it's like, well, no, you can't focus. Well, we can't necessarily choose when we focus. Our brain does it for us.
Yeah.
You watched a show that a lot of people find extremely fascinating, and you're like, this is boring. I can't watch it anymore.
Pretty much, yeah.
And like I understand that of like, well, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
No matter how much you want to, you would not be able to engage in that show until something was added to your brain, and your brain chemistry was like, well, I guess we'll give it another shot and give it a little bit more time. Yeah, so there's the inattentive of just wandering, and then there's the hyper-attentive of, I like this.
And ironically, something else I just remembered, one of the symptoms is trouble with memory.
Yes, so it's in the paper somewhere. It's short-term memory, basically.
Yes.
Active memory? Is that what it's called?
I think they used working memory.
Working memory, that's it.
There you
so
go.
Working memory, I've explained it. I'm a tech guy. I've been explained how it works, kind of like RAM, or random access memory. Basically, on your computer, when you have files open currently and you want to access them fast, RAM storage is basically like your quick files. So they don't go to permanent storage, which means if you lose them, they're gone. They haven't been saved anywhere. They're just kind of there, ready to like pick up and throw back, like apps on your phone that are still open. Well, people with ADHD typically have less of that, less working memory. So if I were to give Merwin multiple choice of like, hey, what color is the wall? Red, blue, pink, or purple?
Pink.
Well, but what I've heard a lot of people, and this is true for me, a lot of times is, wait, what was the question?
Oh, that's right, the wall.
Yeah.
I thought you just, never mind. Okay, yeah.
See, what were you thinking?
Well, I was just thinking about the color that you'd wear.
See, and that's the thing, is like, you forgot the question by the time I got to the fourth answer.
I just saw pink, I'm like, that's a pretty nice color, I'd wear that, pink.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing, is like,
yeah.
Like multiple choice for me in like long form things of like when they have like a story and then they give three, like a question and then three answers. I'm like, Joe? Who's Joe? Go back, read the question. Okay, Joe went to the store. Okay. Okay, so wait. What was the question? Okay, the question was how many people saw Joe? Oh, okay, now I can answer the question. I'm not stupid, I just can't hold all those things. It's like someone like throwing crates of like gallons of milk in my arms. How many gallons of milk can you hold before you drop some?
Right.
If you add one more, one's going to fall off. Like, there's only so much we can juggle mentally in short term. But our long term memory's fine. And we also can remember random things from ages ago really easily.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like we struggle with the like walking through to the next room going, what was I doing? But like that can go even shorter to like going to look something up on your phone and forgetting by the time you get to your browser you've forgotten what you were looking up, and then you end up on like some app on your phone.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And so the active memory is something that is heavily impacted by ADHD. What are some of the advantages to ADHD?
That's a thing? Well, I'd say one of the first advantages that's come to my mind is the help that I'm getting. In terms of the whole reason why I decided to get diagnosed, aside from seeing my professor who had ADHD and seeing similarities, was that once I did get diagnosed, they gave me resources. So one of them was when test taking, I wouldn't have to be in a classroom where the clicking of a pen or a pencil would distract me, or just looking up and seeing birds outside, watching them fly away.
Oh my god! Or who was that testing? Just like when people would look up from their test towards something,
and you'd look up and
you're like,
yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like the more stereotypical like squirrel, like shiny, like ADHD symptom, but like it's real. Like
it's an actual
your
thing,
brain goes, wait, what are they looking at?
Aside from that, a distraction-free environment, they're also giving me more time, which is something that's actually really beneficial. And it's not something someone taught me until...
Can you answer why? Like, what makes that beneficial?
At least in my personal life, it's because whenever I'm taking a test, I rush through, knowing that if I took my time, I'd run out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not... it's not necessarily like, well, yeah, everybody would have better time on a test if they had more time. Like,
Right.
it's for at least for me and how, again, I can't technically say it, like, officially, but the way I perceive it, what I've learned about it is, like, for me, it's the pressure. I walk a very delicate line with pressure, because if I feel like I'm falling behind on a test with a time limit, I might just, like, I guess I'm just guessing the rest of this.
Mm-hmm.
Or that pressure could also help me actually fly through it faster. Like, I could actually focus more with, like, okay, I got this done. But if I fall too far behind, I'm just like, well, there's no point.
And that's the issue. If you focus, you lose track of time.
Oh yeah, time blindness is a symptom. So this is something I read about, was time blindness. There's another word for it, more technical, but that's how most people refer to it in the ADHD community. Is basically neurotypicals, which neurotypicals are people born with quote unquote normal brains. People with ADHD have a physical difference in how their brain is built. So neurotypicals will actually track their heart rate, track the placement of the sun, and use that to actually keep track of time. Like, their brain knows just casually, ow, I just smacked a metal plate. Their brain knows casually how much time has passed based off heart rate and time of day. Like, tracks the sun, even if they haven't seen the sun in a while, it still kind of tracks it. Yes. I was like, that's crazy. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Neurotypicals, once adrenaline kicks in, lose all sense of time. Like, their brain stops keeping track of time when adrenaline, like emergency situations, their brain stops keeping track of time. Now, let's switch over to ADHD. ADHD, typically, our brain can't. All the things it's focusing on, our heartbeat's not one of them.
Yeah.
Where the sun is in the sky is not one of them. Like, and I'm not saying neurotypicals will actually be able to point at the sky, but the brain subconsciously knows it and uses it to keep track of time. So ADHDers typically, on any given day, are not keeping track of their heartbeat or where the sun is, have no sense of timekeeping until you introduce adrenaline.
Of course.
So this is something you'll see with a lot of ADHDers, at least from my research and what I've heard and seen. This is true for me. When we go into emergency situations, I am super calm. I am just like, okay. I feel like the squirrel from, like, over the hedge when he drinks coffee, and he's just like, drip of water, push it away. Like, it's calming. Like, I've always thought it was weird as a kid when I was like, I feel like I should be panicking more, but I'm like, just chilling out. I'm like, okay, yeah, I know what to do. I can handle this. That's when ADHDers actually can keep track of time fairly accurately, which is crazy to me that it's like exact polar opposites from neurotypicals to ADHDers. And like, so if you have a neurotypical keep track of time until the emergency happens, and ADHD keeps track of from there, you have a perfect timeline.
See, I think you'll enjoy one of my stories.
Okay.
This was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I was with my friends and we were celebrating the 4th of July. So we were at my friend's house. We decided, let's go to the roof and watch all of the fireworks.
Uh-huh.
Now, unfortunately, while they all sat down and were enjoying the lights, I couldn't sit still. Uh-huh. So I decided to just, hey, I'm in the roof. It's a new experience. Let me walk around. So I'm walking around. People are shooting off fireworks. And so I get off to the side of his house. And so he has his garage and then he has some bushes. His bushes are on fire. So somehow his house, if you want to call it his house, bushes on the side, caught on fire.
Yeah.
So most people would panic. It was a pretty big flame already.
Sure.
No, I did not.
Yeah.
Instead, what I did, his name is Justin. So all I did was, hey, Justin, come here. So he gets up, slowly walks over, and once he sees the fire, that's when he starts screaming. Everyone gets down, and I'm just like, well, just, the hose is right there. They're getting the, it's fine. They got the hose.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to actually experience that.
No, I mean, like, so, a long time ago, My younger brother had this really bad habit when he'd walk outside the backyard. He would drag his hand along the door and then eventually step off and go. Well, I was in a hurry that day. I forget what I was trying to do, but he walked out the door and I closed it and I felt something wrong with the door close. And he did not sound great. He didn't start crying. He was like kind of like more shocked. So I opened the door. His finger was in the door jamb. Pulled off almost to the very edge. So, again, you'd think small child's dealing with another smaller child.
Yeah.
Well, middle child dealing with small child. You'd think, ah! I go in and go, Mommy, can you come take a look at Ezra? She's like, yeah, sure. It's like soon, please. And she walks over. She's like, oh my gosh! I'm like, I thought I was relaying this urgency very well, but typically this is how I sound. Like this is exaggerated. So when I go, hey, really quick, can you just come look at this? Like that's the calmest she's heard me probably all day. And it's because my brother needs to go to the emergency room, get his fingers stitched back together. And it's like, why are you not panicking and screaming or like, help? But I'm just like, hey, can you come please look at this? Ezra's bleeding. She thought it was like a scrape. I'm like, no, he's like dripping blood onto the, it wasn't a ton.
Yeah.
But like, it was one of those things like, it was an accident. I caused it. I unintentionally. It was just like, oops. But like, I see it. I see the issue. And I'm like, okay, well, we can deal with this. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk inside. And it's just like super calm and casual, but I'm just controlled.
Right.
For once. But yeah, no, so I totally get that. I'm just like, when you start, like, when everyone else is like, ah! You're just like, that's interesting. But yeah, so that's kind of one of those interesting things between the two is like, we don't have a mechanism for keeping track of time until we have adrenaline going. And then we're like actually sharp on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you also mentioned like daydreaming. What can you kind of tell us about that a little bit?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure if I can elaborate more on the daydreaming terminology.
Well, yeah, that's fine. But like, what does it look like for you? Because that's the one thing you did mention is like the daydreaming and an attentiveness.
Yeah. So oddly enough, this is a segue to what we were originally talking about, hey, what are the benefits of ADHD?
Right.
So aside from testing, when it comes to classrooms, I have the ability to record lectures as well as ask for the notes of the professors without having, in a way, be penalized.
Right.
Normally in universities, professors, they're a lot more strict. Right. So any notes they have, it's theirs. You have to make your own.
Right.
The issue with ADHD is, once again, going back to the focus.
Right.
So during the lecture, they'll be talking about, if it's chemistry, they'll be talking about who knows what, some atoms, electrons, obviously chemistry.
You paid a lot of attention to that one.
Oddly enough, it's one of my better classes. But that's beside the point. Sure. So what ends up happening is you lose focus, and in a room where there's nothing to focus on but the professor,
right,
you end up thinking about other things.
You make something up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So regardless of that being, what do I do the next day? What am I going to get for lunch?
Yeah.
It could just be...
It's literally the almost definition of wandering mind.
Pretty much.
Like, your brain will find something.
Yeah.
So you're saying it could be, like, plans. What else? What else did it look like for you?
I've played a lot of video games in my youth. So there'll be times I just go back in my youth. Yeah.
Like...
Many months ago.
When's the last time you played Division? No, Far Cry.
Far Cry. Last week, actually.
So, in your youth of last week.
Yes. So it'll just go back to the times I played video games. I'll put myself in that position. Like, this is what my character did. What?
You'd literally go through and, like, play a video game in your brain.
Yeah. Or one other thing, too. When you're, as a kid, when my parents would drive me around, I don't know if you've done this before.
I almost did. We have to talk about the sentence stuff in a little bit.
Yeah.
So we'll both have to try to remember that in our working memory. But I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. So just you're leaning against the glass, you're watching the streets go by, you just picture someone running and keeping up with the car.
Yeah.
Right? That's another method of daydreaming.
Yeah. Did you ever do like the finger man, like running on the posts and stuff? Yeah.
And eventually it would go inside the car and I'd just be running inside the car.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oddly enough, before we get to that other thing, there's actually some people that have started making myths about that, like what that creature is. It's called a run along.
Really?
So like it's a new myth, quote unquote,
Okay.
that someone actually made a bunch of stuff for about like, you know, because every kid saw this like driving like in their cars driving alongside them. And so it was like, well, what if you weren't just imagining it? What if it was just a friendly thing to keep you company on when vehicles became a certain speed, kids got bored and needed companionship. So what if these things actually came along to actually keep kids company in these long car rides? I'm like,
That's one of the better bits. I believe that. That sounds nice. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm just like, man, that's really good. Why did I think of that? So one of the other, well, this is both a benefit and a hindrance is our brains run faster. So for me, I've described it a few times of like my brain's running like many thoughts at a time, mile a minute, just like going. I've got thoughts running on like different projects that are going on. I've got thoughts on like different family and friend issues going on and trying to solve them currently, and like, you know, it's a machine running through problems and solutions and, you know, thought processes at all times. One of the things that for me, I mean, as you've listened to my interviews and talks, you know that I do this a lot, is I interrupt. My interruptions aren't purposeful, and I try really hard not to do it, but my brain finished your sentence before you did. Like, he said, he started a sentence, and I knew he's talking about the run-alongs.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I went, yes, I've done it. I do it all the time, and there's still times where I have done it, like, and I did it both with the fingers, and I did it both with just the imagining things. Every once in a while I was a superhero. And then I was like, ooh, I should also tell them about like the myth of the run-alongs, and that's going to be really cool to talk about. And so my brain's like, okay, to save him time and breath, I'm going to finish that. But I was like, wait, hold on. Stop myself from stopping him because we're trying to talk about this thing. But so for me, I'm annoyingly good at finishing people's thoughts and finishing things and like running ahead of the conversation to like, okay, there is nothing that is going to be said between this point and the end of his sentence that I don't know what that is already. The hindrance with that is, well, I interrupt a lot, which is bad, and I also tend to talk and ramble on, which, yeah, I've realized it's one of those weird things, because we're talking about ADHD, I don't usually pull back the curtain this much, but like, I subconsciously, well, not subconsciously, I consciously think, just in like slightly not on the top of my head of like, I've said more words than they have in the past few minutes. I'm like, I should let them talk. And then my brain's like, oh wait, but you forgot. But it leads to a lot of interruptions. The other hindrance in other life is movies. I hate previews.
Really?
I absolutely despise previews, like actual trailers. Teaser trailers are okay, but I have had so many movies spoiled completely, 100% down to the very end of the movie by me watching the trailer and then being able to put together, like realign all of those tiny little cut scenes and phrases and going, okay, well that can't happen before that can't happen before that. That means this. This means that's the order of the movie. And if that means this is where this started, that's where that happened, and that where that happened, that means that this person's going to die at this point, and that means that this person is going to have to save this person by this time, and then by that time this is going to happen. And then I go watch the movie and go, well, yep, that's exactly what I thought. The only difference was the dress was blue instead of green. It's like, wait, what? It's like, well, I thought the dress would be blue because of the significance of the blue thing that had the gift in the beginning, and you know, yeah.
Took me a while to remember, but yeah, I have experienced that before. Especially a couple weeks ago, I rewatched the Iron Man trailer.
Gosh.
No. Marvel's early trailers, especially with that one, give away the entire movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they do. I any movie that I want to see, I have to avoid all trailers for.
I think the only trailer I've seen recently is the Spider-Verse. And even then...
So, I will say, the only trailer that I think I've watched in the recent years that didn't spoil it and that actually threw me off this set, and I was so happy that I was thrown off the set, was, I think it was Endgame? Avengers Endgame. In the trailer, they have the Hulk fighting alongside the Wakandans. And in the movie, Bruce Banner is trying to summon the Hulk, and the Hulk is just not happening. And I'm like, okay, well, obviously by the time the battle happens, the Hulk has to come out because it's in the trailer. I'm sitting there going like, okay, how is he going to, what? And then like every time like something happened to Bruce Banner, I'm like, that's it, wait, no, okay, the battle like 30 seconds max away from happening right now. How in the world is the Hulk coming out to like fight? And then it's the Hulk Buster armor. Bruce Banner's in this Hulk mech fighting. I'm like, I know for a fact that he was not in that. And I was like, oh my gosh. That was the biggest twist I had seen in a while. And it was literally the same exact character doing nearly the same thing, just naturally versus technologically. And I was like, but that was one of the biggest twists that I didn't see coming because the trailer was actively going like, you think. But yeah, so like for me that's a big hindrance. But it can be helpful in certain conversations if someone's having trouble finishing their sentence. I'm like, I
understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Don't continue. It's
I like how we did the same thing. You guys can't see it, but we both like did like the handout, like stop, like friendly stop, not the hard stop. Like, hey, just relax. So, like both like simultaneously hand out in front of each other. Like, I got it. It shows you how much we've done this thing of like, just relax. I get it. I got it. You're good.
Yeah.
Chill. I understood. I know you only got through the first 2 words of that paragraph.
But I know what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. So like it can be help. It's like Google's autofill like search bar. Like
it has its benefits, and then you're just off the mark.
Yeah, well, that's what's rough. It's like, okay, I got you. No, I have it already. It's like, oh, you meant okay. I autofilled the wrong way. Okay, sure. But you know, it can be a benefit. At times, it can also be a hindrance when, you know, people just think you're rude and inconsiderate. Instead of considerate, which is how we perceive it. We think we're helping by like, oh, don't say anymore. Just But then they're like, thanks. I'm not a child. I can speak. It's like, well, but, you know, you can save some breath and energy and not say it. And we got you already. We already understand. So like we think of it as the interruptions as helpful versus rude.
Right.
Very rude. But my wife has been helping me with that of like, just let them finish their thought. Yeah.
Yeah, my friends have done the same thing. And it's gotten to a point, as a kid, I used to talk a lot more than I normally do now. And I used to interrupt as well. But growing up in a Hispanic house, when you're interrupting people, that's not a good thing. So I learned to just, stay quiet, let them finish their sentence, and then I can speak. But anytime I get excited or pumped up, I just... or I'm focused, yeah. If the interruptions come out, like, wait, no, hold on, sorry. You were saying?
Because for me, I grew up in more of an Italian household, which you just have to talk louder than everyone else. So it's just like, wait, but I would. So it's just like interrupting is still rude, but if you're in a room with multiple conversations, you just talk louder so that everyone can, like the person you're talking to can hear you.
Yeah.
The only downside to that is when everyone else gets quiet, you're still talking at like level 11, and everyone's like, "Shh, why are you yelling?" It's like, well, because you were all talking really loud, okay? But yeah, like interrupting, I grew up being taught it was still rude, but just a different. There's for me in my brain, there's a blurred line between that because interrupting is not rude. Interrupting is rude, but talking louder than the person you're sitting next to because they're in a different conversation is not. Which is no fault of my parents. That's the fault of my brain and how it perceives things. Yeah. So what are some other things that you've experienced? So I know that in there it talked about boredom.
Yes.
What does boredom look like for ADHD?
Oh goodness, that's very difficult to explain. I have to come back to that because nothing's coming to my mind right now. But I will say one difference that I noticed between the two of us was your having 9, 10 quote unquote tabs in your brain open at one time.
I like that.
I, on the other hand, at most have 1 or none.
Interesting.
But that's mainly because that's how I wouldn't necessarily say either I conditioned myself or my environment. The reason I say that is because I could just never get anything done if I had 10 tabs open and I went from being on my phone to actually, you know what, let me go to my laptop and look this up. Nope, wait, I was going to clean my room. Let me do that first. So it's gotten to the point where if I want to focus, I write everything down. And then I come back, okay, this is what I need to do. However, the drawback is that once I've wrote everything down,
it's done.
No tabs are open. So I'm just living my life like, yeah, I'll just go for a walk. Wait, no, I have 10 things on my to-do list. I should try to get on that.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Man. Sorry, that sounds blissfully calm.
Yeah. Which, actually, now that I think about it, it's a good segue to the boredom. Because when you have nothing on your mind, you're, in my sense, at least in my life, you're bored. So what do? You add a different item to your list.
Right.
Let me go. I remember this one time, my friends and I, we were going to go to the mall. Mm-hmm. I picked them all up because at the time I was doing them when they could drive. I picked them all up. As soon as the last one gets in the car and closes the door, I tell them, hey, how about we don't do that and go to Irvine instead? The mall was 20 minutes away from us. Irvine was 2 hours. So they're like, yeah, I mean, we don't have a what is it? Curfew, thank you. Okay. So we went to Irvine, we went to an escape room, we went to a fancy sit-down restaurant. I forget what it was called, but their burgers were actually pretty delicious.
Nice.
We watched a movie, and then I took them back home for a trip that should have taken maybe 3 hours max. It was about 9.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, boredom hits different with ADHD, because for us, bored is almost terrifying.
Yeah. It's
go ahead.
It's for that same reason why you and I always play music.
Yeah.
Because if it's quiet, if there's nothing to do, you just have to do something.
Yeah. So yeah, that's something that, like I said, we both have that. Like, music is key, and so like I think I've said this before in my show. Like, I have Spotify Premium, I have YouTube Premium, I have regular ads in Pandora, But like I need music, or sometimes it's podcasts, but like something to like fill empty space, because if I just leave myself to just my thoughts get very loud and very annoying, and I need something to be able to help me like focus on a task. And for me, there are times where, like, there's one day I was having a really hard time. I think I was supposed to be doing something. I don't remember if it was cleaning my room. No, it was setting up a bunk bed. And I had the house to myself. My brain was just like, do anything but this. Literally anything but this. And so I was like, okay, I'll turn on my radio with some like country music going on in the background. Like, okay, I still can't focus. Let's start a movie. So I had a movie going. That was enough. So I turned on my Walkman CD player. Had a different set of music going. I was still bored, so I started reading a book. just like propped up on something. And then I was able to actually focus on the one thing I needed to do, which was build this stupid bunk bed. But it literally took like 2 different types of music, a movie and a book, just to focus on one task.
Yeah.
And it's like, most people's like, how, like, and the funny thing is like, if I did that at certain other times, that would be the most annoying thing in the world. But there's times where like, the more distracted I am, the more focused I am. And so like, for attentiveness and like, for long-term anything, so I went to a seminar once. It was a smaller child, like, well, I keep saying smaller child. I don't know why I'm using smaller child so much today. Like 11. I was like 11.
Okay, yeah.
And this is really cool science thing. I could relate more to you, but that required thinking more specifically about that. And that's, I just keep hitting the stupid.
The metal plate.
Yeah. I could, but that would open up other things that I'd be thinking about and distracting out. But like, it was a really cool thing. It was intriguing, but I couldn't focus on the thing. So I brought out my sketchbook. I, almost to this day, it's a little fuzzy now, but it's been a lot of years since I was 11. It's been over 10 years. Let's just put it at that. Well, I guess 15. It's been over 15 years. Jeez. It's been over 15 years since that. But for quite a while, I could look at that sketch that I made. And I could tell you what was said for each stroke. Because I took what was said, and it was like, okay, and this is what I'm doing with it. So it wasn't notes traditionally. It was just I can pair this image that I'm writing and the verbiage that I'm hearing, and I can go, they're the same thing. I can mash them together, and I can actually use that as like, okay, well, this is where he was talking about this, and this is where you're talking about that, this is where he was talking about that, and yeah.
Now, question. The interviewee asking the interviewer. Never mind. Is that something you still do? Or is that something that just happens? So the really difficult part is that's something I've tried to do more often. It's a hit or miss though. Because sometimes I'm thinking too much about trying to do that and it doesn't work. And there's sometimes where I'm not thinking about it at all and it works just fine. And there's sometimes where I'm not thinking about it at all and it doesn't work at all. The thing is that now that I am older, I am... Sorry, my brain just went back to the math thing and I don't think that's right, but I'm not sure anymore. It's close.
Close, okay. Yeah. But I'm in my late 20s. A late 20s adult male with a sketchbook and colored pencils in a business meeting does not quite sit as well as an 11-year-old sitting in a session or something, right? Like as an adult, I tend to I have an app on my phone that is just like fidget toys, so I can be on my phone. So like I have a fidget cube that like. If I play with a fidget cube, there's certain times where the sensor input I need is the clicky feeling, but the clicky feeling is really loud.
Yeah.
That's something that's always, like, that's annoyed my mom, that's annoyed my siblings, that's annoyed lots of people in my life because I'm not doing that because I like the noise. I'm doing that because I like the feeling of my nails hitting that wood.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, if I could press a mute button on that, I would, because I just like the feeling of it. But the problem is, no one else cares about what I'm feeling. They just hear the click, 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 click.
Yeah.
So the phone helps me like do things like that, where I can feel the clickiness. I can feel whatever it is through the haptics. So the phone has a haptic. It's a vibrator that vibrates, and that's how you feel the phone ringing. But it's also how you like feel your keypad clicking.
Yeah.
It's all haptics. But the haptics are really good on it, so I can feel the same clickiness without the loud noise. But if you were to see me in like church or something like that, I'm playing games on my phone. and it's something that I've had to come to accept about myself, is like, I can either play a video game or some stupid app on my phone, or I could fall asleep trying to pay attention to something. This way, there's a chance I'm paying attention. The other way, there's no chance I'm paying attention.
Yeah.
There's a small chance that I might just focus on the game that I'm playing and not pay attention. But if I put that down, there's no way I'm paying attention. And it's one of those things like, great! So there's no guarantee I pay attention for the whole thing. No matter what. There's just ways that I can increase the likelihood of me actually being able to pay attention for the hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Or 2 hours. If it's a meeting, it's 2 hours or 3 hours. Like, those things, like, I have to make sure that there's a chance that I'm paying attention. Now, things that are engaging, so like when I was in like junior high and it was the pastor would ask a question, I could answer, those were engaging. I knew things. I was a smart kid.
Right.
So like I could answer. I could be like, wait, I know that one. But that kind of disappears when you get into the adulthood ages of like, well, no adults want to interact. It's like, well, I do. Yeah, so like it's something that sketching to remember things was kind of hit or miss, like a lot of things are in my life. But there's still times where it does work. Right? I can draw something and be like, it's really funny because it'll be random things too. Because like if I'm just sketching or drawing or painting for just art's sake, I just want art. There's times where I'll look back and like, I know what I was listening to when this happened, or I know what conversation me and December were having when this happened, or maybe it's an episode I edited while I was like, I listened to the episode. Again, there's many, many times that I have to listen to episodes to get the editing, like sound, background sound and stuff. Like, there's times where like, wow, okay, that's imprinted on this forever. And for me, it's like a record. Like, it's not like it's something I can look at and like, that's imprinted permanently. It's not like, well, just gonna smudge that away. Like, it's there, and like random audio segments of my life are transcribed into things. Like, I mean, I remember as a kid listening to like, it's a Sad Morning Kid show on K-Wave. It's a really cool little program, Christian audio dramas. But I would draw or sketch or something like that, and there's still times where I look at some of those pages and I'm like, I know exactly what episode was on that day because I sketched through the entirety of it. But it was a weird thing that I'm like, I don't know how I do it, and I can't make it happen.
See, the reason why I asked is because I have a similar thing, but it's not with sketching because I can't necessarily draw aside from stick figures. It's with music.
Okay.
So every time, a good example would be Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. Okay. It's 6-7 minutes. Sometimes I don't want to listen to it because it's a bit long.
Yeah. That can be.
And when I don't want to focus, it's
I hate the love songs that you like, but you're like, okay, are you done yet?
Yeah. But
anyway.
So Bohemian Rhapsody, I remember listening to that song. It was just once. I didn't have it on repeat. Usually having it on repeat helps. But it was just once. I still remember it was high school. It was in the summer, my sophomore, junior year. And to get my PE requirements out the way, I decided to take PE during the summer. So I remember it's just almost about to be 8, so the teacher's about to come out. I remember the smell. I remember where I was sitting in the basketball courts, and then we had to move to the field to get all set around. And teacher at this point, like, hey, this is what we're doing today, and then let's get to it. So I still remember that opening of that day. And the same thing applies. I have different songs for my different friends. And it just happens because either the song relates to them, which is very rare. More often than not, it's just at the time something significant happened, this is the song that was playing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
See, I have something similar, but it's more emotional. Like, so there's certain songs that no matter what the actual song is, I have different emotions attached to certain songs. It was either I was feeling an emotion when it happened, or after I had the emotion, I listened to the song. Some of it are one of the same. Of like, there's a song from Ernest Goes to Camp, and man, this is it's a song that more people should have listened to because it's a really cool song. Like, Sorry, let me rephrase that because that might sound weird once you find out what it is. It's a extremely well done song.
Okay.
But it's basically, oh gosh, I know. Welcome to ADHD, where at the moment you try to actually put your finger on the actual memory and words and everything, they disappear out the back of your head. But basically, it's I'm really glad it's raining because no one can see you cry when they can't tell the difference between your tears and the rain. But it's a really well done song, and I remember I listened to that. Oh gosh, I can't be 100% sure which event this was, but there's an event in my life that I listened to that after because I have trouble sometimes when I know I need to cry. I can feel the tears, but I just don't. Which goes to another ADHD symptom of emotional dysregulation, which we'll get into in a second. But I remember I listened to that song to try and help me cry to actually get the tears that are in there. Like, you can feel you need to cry.
Oh, I've had those nights, yeah.
But you just don't. But like I tried to use that song to help me do that, and it actually worked. But it's a really sad song. Like it makes you want to cry even if you don't need to already. But I was already feeling sad, and I needed something to help me cry. And then I also, ironically, was sitting there listening to the song thinking, man, I wish more people had heard this song because it's not a very well-known song. Because it's like, yeah, anyway. But it's a really good song, and that's something that's very connected. Of like, there's times where I can look at that as a fond memory of finding something that was helpful for me. Or sometimes it can like bring tears to my eyes. But I have a few songs like that that's like, this song will always have a positive feeling to it. And if I listen to it, it's going to help me. And there's some that are like, I hate this song. Well, actually, I like this song. I just don't like what it makes me remember and feel at the moment. Like, it's just feelings. It's not usually like, remember that one time that this thing happened to you and someone punched you in the face? It's like, no. But it's more like, wow, remember when you felt really bad because of something? It's like, yeah. So it's like emotional.
I have those too.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
It is.
So, emotional dysregulation. So, this is another thing. I've done lots of study on this. So, that's why I've got a lot of...
You have to teach me about this one because this is the first time I'm hearing this.
Okay, so... This goes a lot into like how I grew up and how I felt growing up. So people with ADHD don't necessarily, their brain doesn't necessarily know what emotions are applicable at any given time, which led me to feel sociopathic growing up. Sociopaths don't feel emotions at the same level that other people do. Okay. Having a reaction.
I am having a reaction. But I'll let you finish first before I make my input.
Okay. So with emotional dysregulation, you can have something bad happen and you just kind of brush it off. And then more things happen, you just kind of brush it off. Until, your brain goes, okay, well, I think we've been basically goes like overthinks and goes, okay, we've been underreacting a little much. Okay, so maybe like people are giving us some weird looks. We don't look right. We don't look normal human stuffs. So, okay, next time something bad happens, instead of shrugging it off like I guess normal people do or whatever, don't do, I guess we should have reacted more. So next time something happens, you go, Gah! It's like, wait, no, you just... No, that wasn't... Okay, that was too much. Okay, you did too much. You overreacted that time. Okay. And so it's just like trying to get the right emotions for the right time at the right level because we don't perceive them exactly the same. For me, that represented in deaths of people close to me. This one still to this day I don't like. I don't cry when people I know die. I don't. And I feel like the worst human being in the world. I cried when my grandma died, not because she died, but because she did not get... So she was actually the person that basically planned the funerals and memorials and did the parties. But she died in 2020, so she did not have one of those herself. And that made me very sad, and I'm trying not to let those emotions take hold of me right now. But it was one of those, like, that's irony, but a sad irony of, like, she has provided this for so many other people. I honestly do not know the number, but I would guess, based on what I've heard about her in that church, because I was not at that church, but I would guess it's probably in the hundreds of people that she's provided this service for. And she doesn't get it. And that made me cry. Then later, when I got married, I realized that she's not going to be giving out some quick words of wisdom to my wife. And my wife, December, is not going to get the strong handshake from my grandpa. That's when I cried. When there was and this is going to sound really bad, but when there was a practical impact in my life.
Yeah.
Because until then, they're just gone. Like, and that sounds very cold and jaded, but it's just, my brain sees it as a fact. It is true. It's not, oh no, it's the worst thing in the world. It's, they're gone. That's a fact. Once it impacts me, once it has a direct impact on my life of like, well, growing up, I thought I was always going to be playing tennis with my wife and my grandparents, because up until a few months before they died, they were still beating their kids at tennis. They're incredible. But I realized that one day that we're not going to play tennis against my grandparents. And that's when it affects me. Yeah. Just for those moments. After that, I'm fine again. I don't go through the mourning process that most people do. Which, again, makes me feel very alienated. Also, when most people are having interactions which, you yell at me, and now I yell at you, and now we both cry because we're both yelling. Or like those certain things, like you just don't have that normal reaction instinctively. You're like, oh, I'm sorry. Cry, 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 cry. Like, yeah, I have to work at that a little bit of like trying to make sure that my reaction is equal to that of, no, my reaction is equal to the reaction. Kind of going back to physics almost. Yeah. Like, I need to work at that a little bit. You said you had something. I
did, and actually it's surprising that it didn't click earlier, mainly because while you were looking over my diagnostics papers, it's something that you had brought up about what was it? Emotional regulation?
It's emotional dysregulation is one of the phrases, but I think there's a more technical term.
It was the technical term that they used here for one of my tests. But
I don't remember. It's too long ago.
What, like an hour ago?
Yeah. It's too long ago. Remember? Sorry, that's a phrase I use a lot, and I found out that goes to my ADHD. Is like, someone will say, "What did you say?" I'm like, I don't know. That was a long time ago.
There it is. Emotional. I don't even know how to pronounce that.
Let me see.
Lability.
Sorry, where?
With the right there. Emotional lability? Is that what it is? Or was it simply just...
Liability?
Is it? Oh, I guess I can't read. Okay.
Well, I'm now questioning if I can read this properly. Thank you very much, Merwin.
Well, aside the point, it is something that they had tested for. And I remember I brushed that off.
I'm never going to know what this goes. Shoot. Liability. I don't know. So it's impulsivity.
Yes.
/ emotional lability. I guess lability. I think that makes more sense. Because I think liability would have the I in a different spot. Because it's lab.
Yeah.
ILIT something.
Are we talking about liability right now? Or
lability or whatever it is?
Yeah.
I think if it was the I was closer to the A, it'd make, yeah.
Yeah, liability is LIA. Yes.
Right, there you go. There it is. Lability.
Okay, perfect. Well, trying to get back on track.
Uh-huh.
It is something you had asked before we started this.
Uh-huh.
And I just brushed it off like, yeah, as a kid, I used to have trouble with my emotions. So speaking about just your definition and then your experiences, it clicked that I have my experiences as well.
Okay.
Right? There are times where, when you're kids, middle schoolers, they're kind of hard on each other, right? Whether it's just quote unquote teasing or messing around, horse playing, but there'd be times they'd get no reactions from me, and I remember this 2 instances, and thinking back on them, I feel bad about one, not about the other, but one of them, I forget what they were doing, but it just got to the point where I threw my food at them. Right, so and then I just walked away, and then they tried to be like, "Hey, we were just playing." Nope, was not having it. The second time, which I feel pretty bad about, I was walking home from school. One of my friends, he was walking behind me with his own group, and they were talking to me, trying to get my attention, and I just wanted to be left alone that day. Mm-hmm. So I had bought a Dr. Pepper, and in my judgment, decided, hey. They're not stopping. I'm going to throw this at them. So I throw it at them. One of them gets sprayed slightly, right? That's not what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is the fact that there was an elementary school kid walking behind them. And he got majority of the blast. Jeez. Now, at the time, he even called me out. He's like, hey, you got this kid wet with Dr. Pepper. I just kept walking. And for the longest time, I didn't really worry about that. I didn't really care until one day I'm thinking back and I'm like, that poor kid had to go home and explain to his mom some kid threw a Dr. Pepper and I got sprayed.
Oh gosh.
And I think adding on to what you mentioned about not crying, we've had family members and friends of the family pass away, and I've always stood there while my mom and my sister cried. I'm just standing there and I feel pretty bad. I'm just like...
You kind of feel awkward.
Yeah, it does feel awkward.
I feel like I should be doing something, but I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, just like you mentioned about, unless there's a practical effect, there's been times recently where I've thought about, what would happen if my parents died? And I don't... Again, like what you mentioned, it might sound a bit...
cold and jaded or
whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm okay with that. I'm a pretty independent guy. I should be okay with that.
The day-to-day would not be affected.
Yeah. But then there are times where I think, what I would miss my mom's lasagna. Or I would miss...
there's the things that and it's one of those things that as a human being who's used to normal society, you're like, I shouldn't feel this way.
Yes.
I should not, this is not correct.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel absolutely terrible about it because you're like, well, I must not be a very good human. You feel alien or sociopathic or something because I should be able to feel the emotion that they're feeling, but I don't.
That's what it was. Sociopathic. I had that same exact discussion with myself as a kid.
Yes.
And I remember thinking, sociopath or psychopath? Which one am I? Because it can't be...
Oh, and that's it. That's the emotional dysregulation right there.
Yeah.
Because sociopathy is complete disconnect from emotion. Well, not complete. It means that your emotions are very, very dulled. You don't really experience the emotional side of things. That spectrum is kind of nil. On the other side, you have psychopathy, which is emotions are the primary driving behind everything. And then logic is kind of in there for a little bit. So, but it's like two opposite ends of the spectrum. And with emotional dysregulation, you can bounce between the two of those. From a person's perspective when they're in it, it can feel that way of well, I apparently don't feel a thing, and I can never feel a thing again. And it's like, I'm only rage. And it's like, whoa, okay, kind of pick a middle ground somewhere.
And for the longest time, that was actually my experience of just either no emotion or just angry all the time. Yeah.
You have too much emotion or not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that kind of goes to a bigger thing with ADHD is there's a lot of things with ADHD that either are all or nothing. It's really hard for people with ADHD, generally speaking, and this is based off lots of research and both ranging from Instagram to actual medical papers and stuff. This is a full spectrum of Instagram's how I found out about it because I found out what the practical everyday look ADHD looks like. Because I used to be under the impression that ADHD meant you can't sit still in school. And as a kid, I'm like, so nobody. I don't know any kid that's like, I love to sit in school and stare at one thing all day. Like, that was no kid I knew. It wasn't until I got to Instagram and I found this one guy that's really cool, and I wish I could remember his name right now. I'll plug it down in the description below because like he's a really cool guy to follow and he does a lot of stuff. But like he talked about like oops, I put the wrong thing in the fridge and the wrong thing in the sink and the wrong thing in the pantry, and I'm like, or just forgetting to close the door, or just these simple things are like, I'm sitting there like, ha, I did it too.
Yeah.
I did that too. I did it too. I also struggle with that. Oh my gosh, I also struggle with, and I'm like, see, I'm going down this video, so like, new hobby every week? I just finished my, candle making session that was supposed to be cleaning my room. Still, that was my worst one where I was supposed to clean my room, end up making candles. Didn't have wicks, so I improvised.
Oh.
Well, I found a metal dowel, that like a little metal rod that I used to, basically I was just trying to test my hypothesis of how candle making works and dipping the candle and pulling it back out and it building slowly.
Okay.
So I didn't need a wick. And I also didn't have a container for one of them to try and make it different, like the glass candle, so I used a very special glass of my own that I almost ruined and broke. But yeah. But anyway, I'm like, okay, yeah, I do that. I do the hyperfixations on random things quite often. And then I'm like, okay, and then I also struggle with like remembering this, and I struggle with closing doors and turn off lights all the time because I just like, it just slips my brain. And like, so that's what started my journey. But then I read like actual medical journals about it and stuff like that. So like, it's been a lot, but like a lot of people agree. And like ADHD, just between the two of us, there's different symptoms.
Yeah.
And it can represent differently and different scales of like how bad it affects you. But a lot of them, a majority of them, from what I can tell, is like a lot of them have that struggle with the extremes. You only have extremes. You don't really have like I'm well balanced. It's either you're too emotional or you're not emotional enough. You're either getting there early or getting there late. You're over prepared or under prepared. You're either totally in the zone or you're totally not in the zone. You don't have like some people have those like, sorry, I see it in movies. That's where I see a lot of normal people. And I'm just like, how do you kind of like just kind of pay attention to something? I don't know what that means. Like I have no idea. I either am focusing or not focusing. There's not like a lot of like, I caught a word or two here and there. The only time that happens is when my conversation in my head is taking a very long time and I just am not, I'm taking a few breaths internally in my head, my brain's going, wait, they said something about apples or apple pie. Okay, cool. Anyway, what I was saying, wait, what did they say? Did they say cocoon? Okay, cool. Anyway, what I was saying, like, when my brain takes a breath, that's when I'm kind of paying attention, quote unquote. But like those people that like kind of half daydream in class and they're still paying attention to what the teacher's saying and still can retain something, and I'm like, how?
Yeah.
What is that? Or the people that can like ease into a hobby. It's like, how do you know? You buy all the stuff and then you do it. Like,
That's relatable.
Everyone's like, ugh. But yeah, but like, and that's something else is like the hobbies, the frequent hobbies of like, I've bought things to do resin molds. Got into that for about, I got into that for about a month, but that's because I was making something that needed like 7 layers. But like I've got brush pens, I've got paints, I've got crayons, I've got handmade wooden crayons, there's a few crayons actually. I also have like those multicolored pens, but it's a crayon. I have acrylics, I have oils, I have multimedia things that I've tried to do. I have several instruments, which that's another thing that I find a lot of people with ADHD have that thing of like, I want to learn instruments. I'll never get to it, but I have them. It's like I have a dobro, I have a didgeridoo, I have a kalimba. my little thumb heart thing. This little,
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I forget exactly what it's called, but it's like Columbi or
I've never bothered to learn the name. It's
I,
not one of the instruments I play, so I was
no,
like,
that's
well,
fine. That's fine. I only found it out because I had it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I also have like an actual like instrumental spoons. So like, it's a single piece of wood but carved into 2 spoons, so you can actually play it without having to it's a little complicated, especially when you're not seeing it. If I ever remember to post it, I might post my instruments. But yeah, and like Merwin, he plays the bass, and you've messed around with other instruments, correct?
Yes, I remember. I think the first instrument I ever picked up was the trumpet.
Trumpet.
And then for my uncle's church, I ended up playing the piano for some time. Played the drums. What's it called? The xylophone. I ended up playing for my middle school. Yeah.
Okay.
For about a year, and then I think that's about it. Actually,
the bass you stuck with.
Bass is the one that I stuck with. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I also would like to someday play the saxophone because the saxophone sounds just. I love the saxophone.
You should see my list.
Yeah. That's the other thing is the list. The list of things we will get to eventually. Oh, and the other thing is the not physical, the literal tabs in our browsers of things that we eventually finish reading or finish looking up.
I think last I checked, I have 112.
I've actually recently went through, I had some downtime, and I got it down to, I think, 30.
That's good, though. That's pretty good.
See, I try to because it annoys me. It's always annoying me, like, having lots of tabs open. And so I tried. I'm pretty good about keeping them down, but it got to, like, 50 the other day. And I'm like, that's a lot. I can't, like, I have got those open in my brain. I don't need them on my phone. So, like, I went through and, like, okay, I finished with that one. I can finally close that one. That one's done. And then I opened up 2 more.
yeah, that's usually how it goes. Yeah. I think I had, I think the most I had once was like 150. And keep in mind, there is no way that I could have closed any of them. The only reason why they all disappeared is because I think my phone reset. And that was the worst feeling. I think that's the worst feeling I've ever experienced.
The fear of missing information. Yeah, not fear of missing out, just the information that you could have had. Yeah, no. Yeah.
And aside from tabs, there's also Instagram and things like TikTok.
Oh
I don't like having likes or videos or posts that I liked. So every now and then I'll go through and delete some, or I'll rearrange them into saved.
Okay.
So it's just like organization. I don't like the messiness. With tabs as well, I don't like that I have too many. I just can't close any of them.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like you haven't finished and you don't want to lose it, and so you just keep it open until you can get around to it, and like, or like you don't want to lose it, so you want to be able to find it in case of whatever.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, but I talked about the bullet shrimp like 4 times this week. I can't close that tab yet.
Yeah.
Because if I don't want to have to go look for that image again. Because the time before that, it took me like 2 hours and I didn't find it. So I'm going to keep it there. It's like, can I? Yes, I can. I can close it. Joel, you can close it.
What's a bulletfish?
Bullet shrimp.
Oh, bullet shrimp.
We had a conversation about that.
You have to show me the picture. I don't know what that is.
Oh my god. Merwin! Yeah. Shoot. I'm trying to backtrack the conversation.
I think I remember. I think I picked up.
Where was it?
I don't know where you were. I'm just thinking about the last thing that stayed in my mind.
Go for it. I have no idea.
The way symptoms present themselves.
Oh.
So for you had your hobbies. A lot of them were crayons, right?
No, I just realized like I have like handmade crayons, like a wooden handmade filled. They were gifted from somebody else.
Okay.
I found a really cool like you can just turn it and like pull out the color crayon you need, and then I have like a full like art set with actual crayons in it.
Well, I'd just like to point out that I have no crayons.
Oh.
So I think, well, that's beside the point. So a lot of yours are artistic.
Yeah.
A lot of mine are more academic.
Okay.
So I have my own list with hobbies I want to do, but aside from saying something like candle making, right? Mine is more, I want to study a little bit of chemistry or biology, some statistics, linguistics, geography, archaeology. Yeah. It's just all a broad range of academics I probably won't get to. Or maybe one day in the future.
Yeah.
Like I tell myself every day.
Yeah. Well, I think I can satiate that pretty quickly because like, so I had a friend share a soundtrack for a practice soundtrack, or I forget what it is, like a demo, essentially, of a play that's supposed to happen called Epic, based on like Troy.
Oh, I've heard of it. Yes.
It's like 4 or 5 songs long. It's not very long at all. But I realized I don't know the story at all, and I'm like, I need to learn. And I'm waiting till I can find something for it. But like usually, if I have those things, I go like, wait, hold on, what's the story behind Rome wasn't built in a day? But what is it? And I'll look it up. I'll watch a YouTube video on it, and I'm like, okay, that's good enough. Or like if I have a question about geography, which is my worst subject. Geography is really a dismal. Well, okay, it's better than people that don't know what country they're in. Which is sadly a lot of people. But like I'm pretty bad at it. So if I need a question answered, I'll watch a video on something, or like a culture or something like that. I'll look it up. Like, wait, Greenland versus Iceland. What's the cultural difference? I forget. I don't know. I'll look up video on YouTube, watch it, done. So like mine are simple in those dives, but there are other things that I've dipped into a little bit more. But most of mine are fictional.
See, now because of my memory. My short-term memory, I should say, the reason why I can't just... Working memory, thank you. The reason why I can't just look it up is because I'll forget. And so the issue is I want to remember.
You have to study it.
I have to study it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's why I have all this list of different academic subjects.
Yeah. For me, it's trying to pay attention to the boring parts. So like the several pantheons. Eventually I want to actually learn the actual historical version of the pantheons. The problem is there's a lot of boring stuff in there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I don't care. But I want to learn more about like the mythos, the mythologies of the past are really cool. And like my sister had a whole giant book on it. And I'm like, that's really cool. Give me the cliff notes. Like, I mean, I do that a lot. I learn by osmosis a lot because I don't have the focus. Like, again, it goes back to, like, the ability to control focus. If I hit a boring part of a book, it's it. That's just it. So what I often do, I come from a big family of readers. So, like, I'll talk to my sister about what book she's reading and talk about it. And, you know, Lord of the Rings and all these other things that, like, I don't have the focus and willpower to actually read them myself. I've listened to them read to me. I've watched movies, but I mostly learn from like osmosis from other people. Like, oh, that's an interesting book. Tell me about it. Oh, thanks. All right, that's one book off my hand. You know, like, it's like I don't need the whole thing. I don't need to know the difference between this and that. I just need to know what happened. I don't need to sit there going like, wait. Why did you... Okay, so you did this to that person, but why? Okay, I missed something. Like, I can do the osmosis thing. So for me, I that's an advantage I have is I need my curiosity satiated. But I don't need to go to school for 5 years to learn it. You know, I mean, that's this whole point of this podcast. Is like, I don't need to write a book. I can talk to authors about it. I don't need to run an escape room. I need to talk to somebody that's designed one. And so, like, my ADHD, I was oddly enough kind of fueled this podcast a little bit of like, I have insatiable curiosity in the big picture, but my curiosity on a subject can be satiated by a conversation until somebody else, and this is kind of what it's talking about, like the Stranger Things thing of like, until somebody else brings something else up of like, I guess I need to talk to another photographer or another author or, you know, like, which I'm actually planning on talking to another author because he's authored several books, but he also took it a step further to help other authors with stuff. And so like, well, he's another person on my list of I'm going to interview.
Yeah.
That's another, speaking of lists, I have a list of people that I'm like, well, if I ever get the chance, I have a subject that I would like to talk to them about, and, you know, like, I can write questions for that really quick, and I have tons more questions off the top of my head. But that curiosity for me, for the academic side, is a little less, and usually satiated in, like, a single session of, like, usually it's a single session of diving through this document, that document, this article, that article, these videos, those videos, and then done. ADHD is a little different because there's so many facets of it.
Yeah.
I'll actually link it down in the description if I can find it. I think I have it still. Because it's a series of articles talking about different symptoms of ADHD and how they play out, which is where I found out about the time blindness and like the neurotypicals versus ADHD brain, like keeping track of time. That's also how I learned about the emotional dysregulation. And there's a few other things that I like learned about of like, oh, hey, this, and it's like just a series of articles by the same paper website, something I don't remember exactly, but it's a series by the same people with research with the doctors and specialists and all those things. Yeah, so I'll try to link that down below, and I'll send you a link, Merwin.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You can go through it.
That's another tab open.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, once you hit the bottom there, it's almost cruel because at the end of each article, it's like, do you want to check this specific one article out? So it's like, next chapter, next chapter, next chapter. I'm like, I need to retain some of this information. I need to think about it. But I'm going to click that and then leave that there for next time. Yeah, like, so ADHD is always, there's always something new. And I'm like, wait, are you kidding? That's another thing? Like, I always thought I was just really bad at money. You know what I found out it was? Money doesn't mean anything to me. Like, it's not to my brain and how my brain functions, it's not something that factors into things. It's either there or it's not there.
Yeah.
Again, going to those extremes of either yes or no, too much emotion, no emotion. You have either I have money or I don't have money. There's no like, you're running low on money. It's like, do I have it though? Yes? Okay, cool. I don't see a problem. That's something I'm very grateful for my wife for because she's really good with money. But like, that's something that I didn't realize was a symptom that like other people with ADHD struggle with until I found out about it randomly through a Instagram video of like someone mentioning that. I'm like, I'm sorry, wait, what? Wait, hold it. Is this a whole thing? It's like, yes, this is a whole thing that a lot of people struggle with is like, money is not like food. I can understand food. Yeah. I can understand low on food. I can understand no food. I can understand too much food. I can understand all those things because this will fill my stomach and this won't. Money is like, I don't know, it can do some things right now. It can't do other things right now. It depends on what I want to do.
Yeah.
I can buy an app with this, but I can't buy a game with this. Or like a game. Like a board game with this. Sorry, it's like an app and a game are the same thing. But like, like that thing of like, it's malleable. In my brain, it's not this hard substance. It's a ethereal idea. It's a non-corporeal idea in my head of like, well, a single dollar, how much is that actually worth? Well, it depends. Are you trying to buy a car? Or are you trying to, get a gumball out of a machine? Like, to me, my brain doesn't comprehend that. My brain is just like, its thing, does it do what I'm currently trying to make it do? Yes, cool, I have enough. Even if that means I'm now no money now, that didn't matter for a very long time. It didn't have that object permanence of this equals this and this is how much you need to be worried about. Right. That was another thing that's like, oops, wait, really? That's also something odd about people with ADHD is their object permanence is odd. So, for those of you who don't know object permanence, do you know what object permanence is, Merwin?
I learned about it. I forgot about it.
So, object permanence is something that you often is tested in small children about basically when things get moved out of sight, do they still exist? So there's a test for that of like, Susie walks in with a basket of cookies. Billy takes 4 of those cookies and puts them in his basket. And then you cover both baskets up, and then Susie walks back in. How many cookies does Susie think are in the basket? And then it's like, well, okay, Susie doesn't know that because she didn't see this thing happen. But the kid's like, well, I know the cookies are over there. They're over there. Shoot, my brain's just like, that's not object permanence. That's a different thing. Totally different thing. Shoot. I feel really stupid right now. I'm going to find out what that is now. That's a totally different thing. I think it's slightly related to object permanence. Actually, is it? I don't know. Shoot, my brain's now like triple guessing itself. So I'll go with a different version of object permanence. Basically, what people often boil it down to is like, once something's out of sight, does it still exist? Okay. Once it's out of sight, does it exist or not? I don't know. You know, like, if you're like, well, I put a thing outside my door today, and nothing has happened to it, so it should still be there. For people with ADHD, things that are out of sight oftentimes don't exist. Unless it's something routine. So like friends, if you don't see them, you still care about them just as much. But if I haven't seen you in like a week, I'm not going to think about texting you unless something comes into my life that goes, oh, that's a really cool, like, intricate bass line. Hey, Merwin! Like, that's when I'm like, hey, Merwin, this is a thing for you. Or, well, for Merwin, it's ADHD things. Like, if I see something in ADHD, I'm like, Merwin needs this. But, like, and that's going to last until either one of us decides that something drastically needs to change in our friendship and we're never going to talk to each other again. But until such event happens, for the rest of my life, if I see something with ADHD, or there's a few other subjects that I'm like, Merwin, that's going to go to Merwin. Forever.
Yeah.
But if I don't see something with ADHD or something else that reminds me of Merwin, I'm not going to message Merwin until such thing happens. And the second Merwin goes like, hey, Joel, how you doing? I'm like, hey! It's going to pick up exactly where it left off. There's no, someone put it, there's no friendship, law of thermodynamics. Decay. Friendship decay. There's no friendship decay. Because, like, for us, nothing's changed in that time period. Nope. It's the exact same friendship we left 17 years ago or whatever. And as long as you don't act like something's changed, we don't see any change in that friendship. Damn. So as long as you see that friendship the same, it's like, yep. And I have several friends that will, like, just text me out of the blue, like, how you doing? It's like, great, how are you doing? Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Just not even skipping a beat.
Yeah.
But if we haven't heard from you and we don't text you, don't be like, oh, man, Joel doesn't love me anymore. Joel doesn't like me. Joel doesn't love me. Joel doesn't care. It's like, nope, I just forgot you existed. In all practical senses, you did not exist because nothing has reminded me that you exist. Nothing has shown me you exist. But then you texted me and you exist again. It's weird. Like, and that's just it.
And it's for that reason I'm very methodical about where I put my things, right? Even in just my pockets. So my keys don't go in my back left pocket. My phone, front right? Yeah. Wallet on my front left. So if I ever put my keys in a different place, in a different pocket, I'll spend 10 minutes.
End of the world.
I'll spend 30 minutes looking at different rooms. Wait a minute, maybe I should check my pockets. There it is in the front.
Yeah. That's something that's really difficult. Like ADHD, it's oftentimes you just put it at the closest convenient place. It's like your phone. Is this something? I am going to pick on Merwin a little bit because I watched Merwin, and it's really funny because like my ADHD is not that bad, but like he'll have his phone in his hand, set it down, turn, and go, "Where's my phone?"
And that's a bit drastic.
I've seen you do that once.
Oh, never mind.
I'm not saying on a regular basis. I'm saying this one specific example. You put it down, turned just out of sight, and went, "Where's my phone?" And I was sitting there going like, bro. And I'm just like, right where you just put it. It's like, oh, right. But like, I mean, I have seen several things where like, I'll put it down and my brain will like remember kind of vaguely where, like what surface it is on. And I'm like, okay, where's the surface? Or like, I know what height it was at roughly. What else is that same height? And I'll have to like look for that height, you know. But like I do the same things. like I said, like I don't think I've ever had it quite as bad as that one specific instance, which I still rag on Merwin about constantly because it's really funny. Because I was like, that's like the grandma that's like, "Where's my spoon?" Like it's like in your hand, grandma. But like I do have that moment where I'm like, I just had this thing, I just put it down, and like magic, it's gone. It's like, Joel, you put it down like right over there. It's like, oh, the funnier thing is I'm better at keeping track of where other people put down their stuff than I put down my stuff. So like if someone's like, where's my, it's like, well, you left it actually fell back into the couch and behind the covers on the right side, and it's actually face up. It's like, what? It's like, I don't know. Don't ask me where anything of mine is right now, but I can tell you where your phone is and what orientation it is on. And the last app you used. It's like, well, I just happened to glance at your phone right before you put down your pants, but your pants, it fell off your pants and it fell into the crack, and I saw it glint off the light as I walked past out of the room. It's like, what? It's like, I don't know. My brain can't remember what I was supposed to tell you, but I can tell you things that I shouldn't be able to know. I often creep people out with that one because I'll know random things about positions of random things.
I think that's happened to me once or twice. Don't have much experience with that.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun because ADHD, our typically is very observant, but we don't get to choose what we are observant about.
Yeah.
So like you can remember random facts about random mythologies and stuff like that, and you're like, yeah, it was this name. It's like this like a third tier character in this mythology, but you know exactly what their name was and exactly what their title and position was. Like, I don't know that much, but yeah. It's a lot of niche things that ADHDers. Yeah. So if you have friends that are very knowledgeable about very odd specific things, they might want to get checked. How are you feeling?
Pretty good.
Pretty solid.
Pretty solid.
I'm feeling pretty.
It's a good feeling when you go down memory lane.
I meant referring to like how much we covered in the episode, but I'm glad you're feeling pretty good too.
I feel good about that as well.
Okay, because I'm feeling like I'm running out of steam of like things that I'm currently thinking about that are interesting topics.
Yeah.
But what I will say, in all seriousness, is like, and ADHD is a hard thing, especially as an adult, to get diagnosed with. A little bit of like, a lot of people will tell you, oh, you're allowed to say one more thing. So, what things did you hear a lot as a kid that relate directly to your ADHD as an adult?
Could you expand on that? How so?
So, like, for instance, I know a lot of people were told that they're lazy or stupid or, just not applying themselves. Because most ADHDers are pretty smart. They just don't have the ability to point that smart at a specific thing. So, like, sometimes they're called gifted, sometimes they're called lazy, sometimes they're called, like, stuff like that of, like, why can't you just, just sit down and focus? Those, and then as an adult, it's like, why don't you just use a planner? That'll help you organize. Like, why don't you just don't forget things as often? Like there's simple, like, for depression, the equivalent is just think happy thoughts.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Like, well, you're not depressed. You're just a little sad. Like those like platitudes and typical sayings that you've heard.
They've changed as I've grown up. I remember as a kid, it was a lot of, I was very energetic. Calm it down. Why don't you take a seat?
Right.
My teen years, it was more of like, hey, why don't you get up and start moving around?
Uh-huh.
And recently, those have mostly gone away.
Right.
My entire life, I've always been told I was pretty smart. So
Yeah.
I've always held on to that, which I took as a compliment because it was pretty good. And something I've learned is I'm a pretty fast learner.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the reasons why I'm willing to tackle the academics.
Yeah.
Because it'd be something I can pick up pretty quickly. But recently, one of the things that I struggle with is my working memory. So that's something that's always brought up, whether it's with my friends or it's something just like, oh yeah, I just forgot. One of my semesters at university, I met with a academic coach. So one of the things they mentioned was, like you mentioned, the planner, but not a write it down, just what worked for you. So I always had my laptop, and so that's where I did it. And when I tell you, I was in awe. That doesn't even cover everything. Because I was finally able to keep track. Like, oh, that's right. This is my class. This is the time that I have between each class. This is my lunch. It's almost like the kid going to a candy store. Like that smile that it puts on their face. That's how I felt. And then I just forgot to do that.
See, and that's the thing. Like, so the thing with for planners with me, and just this is try and keep this to a small little tangent, is like planners work until they get boring. So that initial like wow, and then you're like, oh, it's fine. I'll do it later.
Yeah, towards the end of the semester, I found myself diverging off of my calendar.
Oh, that's the other thing is you're probably also called like a procrastinator a lot.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, like that's a big thing.
Yeah.
But lazy, you just need to focus more. Just can you just sit still? Like the just kind of keep in place. Like, can you just stop fidgeting? You're really annoying. Yeah, annoying's another one. But yeah, there's a lot of those things that like if you got called a lot of those things, you can look this up online. If what we've been talking about is like
maybe
like it doesn't hurt to go like talk to a professional and ask, because like there's some benefits to being officially diagnosed. Of like for Merwin, he has a whole paper that kind of helps him like work through like what are the parts that he struggles with, what are the parts he's like it's pretty typical, all those things. One of the other things that I would like to point out, because this is probably one of the most exhausting parts of ADHD, is when I get home after a day of being with other people and I am able to relax and take off the mask. So one of the big things with a lot of people that are neurodivergent or not neurotypical is masking. So masking is basically putting on a face of, see, I'm Mr. Normal Man. And so masking is something that happens where you try and pretend to be normal and you try and mimic and copy what quote unquote normal people are doing, but that's stressful. And oftentimes you don't even realize you're doing it until you're able to like get home and you have like, for a lot of ADHDers, it's a lot of energy, but no more motivation to use it.
Yeah.
Or, you just like want to just scream in a pillow or something, or you just kind of want to do stuff finally now that you can be yourself.
See, I'm the opposite. That once I get home, I'm spent. Because for me, I'm more introverted.
Right.
But like you mentioned, in the sense of being normal, what I learned, and this is something we talked about before the podcast as well, was that I picked up everything from my friends.
Yeah.
What they did, that's what I did. And they're extroverted. So a bunch of the things I did was extroverted behaviors. And so that takes a lot out of me being an introvert. Yeah. So every time I get home or I finish a social...
Yeah. So your masking is actually putting out more energy.
Yes.
Versus taking more energy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for me, oftentimes it's me trying to not be so... is trying to like, yes, I'm still interested in this conversation. Totally, I'm enthused currently. So it's me trying to tone down. For you, it's you're trying to match everyone else's, like rise up to everyone else's.
Yeah.
I'm trying to bring my energy down to everyone else's. So when I get home, I'm overstimulated, but I now don't have the energy to put forward towards proper stimulation or calm me down or whatever like that. So like for me, it's the opposite. But yeah, like if you're introverted and I'm extroverted, that makes sense. But like the masking is either no matter what direction it is blending in you put on this mask to blend in with people, and then when you're able to take it off, you feel yourself again. And the nice thing is when you find a group of friends that you like, and if you're listening at home and you're like, well, I don't do that. It's like, well, if you found a group of friends that you like, you have friends that you can be just yourself. You don't need to worry about what you say or do, or like, oh, they thought that was too weird. Like, but then there's other friends you're like, I have to act differently around them just so that they don't think I'm weird. That also might be a sign that you're masking. But you know, like I said, it's never, hold on. It's not going to hurt to get checked. If this is something that sounds familiar, or, you know, you resonate with either things that me or Merwin said, you're reading the articles that I've linked down below, like, go ask your doctor or ask your therapist or something like that. Go see a professional and ask, like, hey, is this something that could be me? And like, you never know. And if you do have it and you get that diagnosis, there are things that can help you and might make life easier for you in the future. And if not, that might lead you to, you know, whatever else might be the cause of that. One of the other things that we talked about before we started recording was like, one of the things that kind of overlaps a little bit, but also is at the same time slightly inverted of it, is autism. Autism can show similar signs as ADHD, and a lot of people have, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. There is a bit of overlap between autism and ADHD, where some people have both. That can cause some very interesting mental things to go on. I've heard people like, yeah, I need to stay organized, but I don't want to focus on organizing. But, you know, it's like it can lead you to find some help, because like these things aren't something that you want to deal with on a regular basis. You don't want to sit there going like, I know someone just said their name 2 seconds ago.
Oh, don't start with that. Don't start with that.
Yeah, but like that's the thing.
Goodness, yeah.
Names is a working memory function that like you're like, if you just met 14 people, you're just like, I'm out. Hey, buddy.
See, what's interesting is that my go-to, and this is, if anyone that knows me ever hears this and catches me, my go-to is friend. So like, hey friend, how you been?
But yeah, that's something else with the ADHD that you get really good at using anything but a name. But then, you know, like, I lost my train of thought. Anyways, it was like it can help you to know why. Like for me, knowing why I do certain things is just by itself is very helpful. Also knowing, like, with my wife, I'm able to help her help me in everyday life, so she doesn't get as frustrated when I'm like, I don't know what you said 3 seconds ago. I got up to do something, but I don't know what. You know, she can be like, it helps her, it helps me, it can help my bosses, you know why. And it also can offer options for help. Of like, maybe it's some sort of, a lot of people that actually have stimulant medication that they take in the morning to help them focus for the day. Some have different routines that help them. Some have different, but this is a very ADHD way to end this episode of just rambling on slowly because I still have thoughts, but can't put them concisely.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm so sorry, guys. Try and wrap it up neatly at the end. If things are sounding relevant to your life, see if you can get some help. If you want to share your stories of what your ADHDs look like in your life, please share them. I'd love to hear your guys' stories. Leave it there. Thank you, as always, to Milana Dodd. She has done a fantastic job doing the cover art for Curious Joel. Go check her out on Instagram at Milana's Design. I always get the S wrong. It's either it's Milana's Design. I don't think this is S after design. Or you can check out our website at the same thing, and it will be linked correctly in the description below. My brain is going to kill me. But go check out her website and her Instagram. You can find out all the amazing work she does there. I believe Braden Slens has actually released another episode of his Coaster Gnome 0 Credits and Counting. I believe this one was with Garrett Ventura, which has also been on my program. So go check that out. I'll have a link to his latest episode down below. I feel like there's one other thing that somebody is about to get on, but they haven't finished yet. But I'll let you know when that drops. Yeah. And if this episode is something that someone else, you might be thinking of someone else when you heard this. You're like, wow, that's my friend. I don't know. Steve. Jill.
Dave. Everyone knows Dave.
It's a joke. If you want to know the joke, ask me. Hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, email me something. So if you actually want legitimately, if you want to know that joke, I will be happy to put that in. Just let me know. You can find me on Twitter at Joel Sorgo, on Instagram at CuriousJoelCast, and you can email me at CuriousJoelCast@gmail.com. Yeah, if this is something that you think someone else would enjoy, the show or this episode specifically, please share it with them. If you could take a moment to rate and review, that really helps me have other people see it. My gosh, this is the worst outro I've done.
I think speaking about our symptoms just made them worse.
Maybe. Yeah. Or just speaking out loud for so long. My brain's just like, yes, all of them. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm trying. I really am trying. But yeah, so just a quick rating on iTunes or Spotify or whatever you can find this on. Whatever you listen to this on, that'd be really helpful. Leaving a review helps other people kind of know what they should be listening to. Yeah, and sharing it is the best way to help this podcast grow. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'll catch you all on the next episode.